start and then take any questions you have. Good to be out here with the guys. Obviously, wasn't able to do 100% attendance this spring, but just felt like I had to kind of budget the time to really focus on my body and make a lot of progress there, and I felt like I did. And it was time well spent, but that obviously brings a trade-off as well, where you got to make up ground then when you get back, and that's what this week's about. And then over the summer, continue to take steps on my own, and then training camp, really use that to be ready to go for the season. So, that's kind of my mindset and where we've been and the strategy this off season. And I think when the season ended last year, as I started then getting into working on my body and having the time to do that, felt like I thought I was much better than I was. And I think you learn that as you improve, as you make improvements, you realize, I thought I was already back, and I'm still, making a lot of improvements here. So that kind of then tells you that, hey, on a 1 to 10, I thought I was at an 8, and I was really back at a 3 or 4, and now I'm getting back to that, 6, 7, and an 8, and so you start to kind of realize that you weren't quite as far along as you thought, and that was kind of a lot of learning this off season to get there, and it's been a productive time. So take any questions you have.
Is that the Achilles, Kirk, or is that the arm?
No. So the I don't want to get too into detail, but the Achilles healed great. Mm-hmm. What ended up happening was the ankle was just very tight. And so I've had to really, and I had to learn this. I didn't realize this, but everything was strength, build strength, build strength, build strength. So that's what I focused on. And what I realized this off season was that really the strength was there. It was a mobility issue, and you have to have both. And I really didn't have the mobility, so now it's been mobility, trying to grind on that. And the Falcons have been great, giving me the resources and the equipment I need to be able to do that. And so it's been a learning process, because when you start in January, you're kind of just throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks and trying to figure it out. And we've gotten a lot done over the spring.
There have been some things out of your control over the last year. The things that were in your control, either what you said or what you could have done. What would you have done differently, or what would you do differently, knowing everything that's transpired the last year?
I think there's a lot of things, that you learn, and unfortunately you can't go back, and you got to look forward and move forward. And I think that's what the perspective we got to have now is we're moving forward, and it's about how we as a team and as quarterback room can be the best we can be in 2025.
Is it fair to say you weren't feeling really 100% last season, and now you're going to come into this season maybe feeling more like yourself physically?
I think I thought I was, and that's kind of what I'm saying is once I got to the off season, I realized, maybe there was more there than I realized. And so many times in college football, high school football, and certainly pro football, you don't feel great, but you say, I can do this, I'm going to go. And you have a great game, and you play great, and you get away from it, and you say, I'm so glad I stuck it out, I'm so glad I played through it, because you can. And that was the mindset, I've always had, and so last year was no different, is that, you get out there and you believe that, good things can happen, and unfortunately last year they didn't, but that's how it goes sometimes.
What was it in the offseason?
When you started for the Redskins, you took over as starter. Remembering how that was, any advice that you would give to Penix, knowing the fact that he's going through that same thing?
Michael's going to do great. He's going to have a great career. He's off to a great start. He's got all the tangibles and intangibles you need to be successful, and I'm just here to support him, as he needs it. But I also don't need to be. I don't need to be in his ear so much that I'm sort of another voice. I just want to be a support as I can, and he knows that. And obviously we're in close proximity on the field and in meetings, so we have great conversations. And I can learn from him just like he can learn from me, and that's how a good quarterback room always should be.
What is your ideal scenario, Kirk? Because obviously, you want and you feel like you're still starting quarterback in the NFL, and that may not be in the cards for you here in Atlanta right now. So what is your ideal scenario?
Well, I think right now it's about, the situation I'm in and being the best I can, and hopefully, in February, we as an organization are holding up the Lombardi Trophy, and how we do that, it's just more important as a team, we do that some way, somehow. So that's where the focus has to be, that we as an organization win a championship, and each one of us individually has to, do our part in that to get there.
And where are you mentally on your personal journey? Because ideally this isn't how anyone, even the organization, wanted this to pan out, but this is where we are, and it's not the easiest situation for you.
Yeah, I've always believed, going back to my rookie year, what Mike Shanahan told me, which is tough times don't last, tough people do. it's not just physically tough. You know, it's mentally tough, emotionally tough. You got to be resilient. Life's gonna have some curveballs, and you just have to keep moving. And I think the key is that you don't pout or stop. You just keep moving, keep working forward, and believe that if you do that, good things will happen.
Kirk, I feel like we've heard from everybody else that you would prefer to be somewhere else where you can start, but we haven't heard that from you. Is that accurate? Obviously,
You'd love to play, but I'm not going to dwell on things that aren't reality. In terms of, that's not the situation I'm in. So it's better spent to be focused on the situation I'm in and controlling what you can control, and I think that's the right mindset to have.
Have you expressed that to the team, to the executives here, though, that would be your preference if they could get it worked out?
Certainly there were conversations in January, February, March, but even April. But we're moving forward now. I think timeline-wise, just like in the season, we'll be asked questions, and I'll say those are February questions. And I think even off season now, that's a February question where you say, those are things we talk about, months ago, and now we got to move forward.
Forgive me, one more February question. How much of an impact was the shoulder and arm last year after the New Orleans game? How big a factor was that?
Yeah, I think that's a question I've asked myself quite a bit. I don't think it's a simple cut and dry answer. I think when you look at the way the season was going and then that hit and kind of where things went after that, it feels like it was an inflection point. But I can't sit here, if we were to watch the tape together, I can't sit here and blame every mistake I made on that. So it's somewhere in the middle. But certainly there was a bit of an inflection point there that at the time I didn't realize. I've sprained my elbow before, I've sprained my shoulder before, I've dealt with sprains in my ankle. So what I was feeling was no different than what I felt in other years. But I think the combination of the three maybe was the part I didn't quite understand, was how it all works together into one. Again, a lot of learning that took place, and so now we move forward with what we've learned, and hopefully that makes you a better player up ahead.
So is it fair to say maybe your body of work that you put on the field wasn't judged correctly just because you weren't fully healthy in that way?
Well, I think when you play, that's what you put on tape. We talk about what you put on tape is what you are, and so that kind of is what it is.
You've illustrated this a few times now. Ra earlier was talking about the outside discussion about the quarterback room is probably a little bit more dramatic than it is on the inside. How would you characterize what the quarterback room is like right now?
It's great. It hasn't really changed much in my years in the league, really. We go to work. We got a job to do. We're all pulling together. That's what a good quarterback room does, and that's the way it always has been and the way it always should be.
Kirk, how's your mentality changed and transition from where you were last year to having to step into the position you're in now? How have you grown from that spot last year to where you understand now?
DJ, I think you just learn. Like I said, this off season, you learn a few things about your body, about how you can get better, and then I think you also, have awareness too of your role, and so you gotta play that role. And if that role changes, then you gotta change with it some. But I think at the same time, some of the habits you have going back years don't change. You come every day humble and hungry, and that never changes.
You're a guy who's motivated by a lot of different things. We know that. Obviously, Father's Day is coming up. You got some kids who love you, look up to you.
Yeah.
How does that change your perspective on everything that's going on in life and what you're trying to do, especially on a football field?
Sure. Well, first of all, a lot of gratitude. We all have days at our job that don't go as we want, and you got to keep things in perspective. And I have so much to be grateful for, and starting with my wife and two healthy boys, and so certainly in any time the way you handle things, I want my boys to be able to learn from it and observe it and use it as a teaching point someday. So certainly a lot of people watching, but my boys are the ones I care about who are watching, and that's what the example I want to set for them.
It's not traditional and not ideal, but the fact that you are here, Falcons have two capable quarterbacks on the roster in case something goes wrong or in case there needs to be another change. How do you feel about just the overall setup, that there's for lack of a better term, a really good insurance plan if things do change?
Well, depth is important at every position, and certainly I'll be doing all I can to stay ready, and hopefully, I think the organization would like to not need me, so but I'll do the best I can to stay ready.
I know you didn't want to get too far into the weeds when it comes to your injury, but what part of your off-season process was it for you? Okay, something was not quite right for me this year.
It was very gradual. It wasn't an aha moment, but in January got right to work, just trying to kind of unpack things and how to work through it, and took trips to see different people, and felt like we had a couple inflection points, whether it was maybe in January pre-Super Bowl, felt like took a step in the right direction, and then maybe in March a little bit, and then got back here in April, and Falcons helped set me up with some things that really helped me over April and May, that even now I feel like I'm excited, this summer break, to have the time to be able to really go at it with what I've learned, April, May, to be able to apply that in June and July. So, that's kind of where we are.
Do you need any kind of procedures or anything right now? No surgeries or anything?
No. Thankfully, didn't have to go into the knife, anything like that.
If you were to be banged up again, and it goes back to the first thing I asked you, I guess what I was getting at, how do you think things would be different if you said, you know what, my arm's a little banged up, I'll shut it down for 2 weeks and we'll see how it goes? If you go through that again, would you maybe shut it down and see how things go differently?
Yeah, I think every situation is its own entity, and you just got to see where you are, in that moment. But as I said earlier, I've played through so many things over the years that have been some of my best games. You understand that too.
How are you feeling now? Are you feeling 100%, or is it maintenance from here on out?
Yeah, I think it's a process. I think I'm, still got a little bit more to go, but very encouraged by the progress I've made since January. So even jogging out here today, just very encouraged by what I felt compared to where I was, even like 6 weeks ago, out here throwing with the guys. And I believe there's more progress up ahead though too.
Now that you're at mandatory, how has off-season progressed for you?
Good. Offense is growing. I think position groups are growing, and we're getting better, and that's the main sole focus right now, and that's what we're doing. So it's been going good.
How fun is it for you to see Michael grow into his role as a leader?
It's really, really fun to watch, That's who he is, day in and day out, so we expect none less, and he's doing that day in and day out, so it's good. It's good to see.
When you rewatch those final 3 games of last season, what are your biggest takeaways on how much of a boost he can give this offense?
That just goes to the type of player he is. It gives us a huge confidence boost, and that arm is crazy. So excited to see what we could do this year with it and in the years coming forward.
Greg, what do you feel like is, for you, just personally, from a wide receiver one standpoint, what do you feel like you need to do in order to be able to fully step into the role? Or do you feel like you already do?
Just keep on doing what I'm doing at the end of the day. Yes, sir.
Are you? Raheem has talked about some of the guys he's got to like lower the revs on him this time of year. Are you you feel like you're one of those guys that you kind of figured out how to kind of navigate through at a idle speed until you get to the training camp where you ran for that?
Yeah, I know I've learned how to practice and be a pro, but at the end of the day, everybody's here because they're competitive greatness, right? So we go out there and we're playing the jump balls out there. People are going to go up and try to go get it, I think that's the only thing, kind of, and if coach is not talking about you that he has to rev you down, then you're not doing anything right, But yeah, it's just competitive greatness at the end of the day, and people want to go ham, and they do at the end of the day. So yeah.
Speaking of that, what do you get out of going up against AJ in practice when you do get the revs to go up against a cornerback of that caliber?
Everything. It's iron sharpens iron at the end of the day, and he's a hell of a player. He's a lockdown corner. You can look at all his stats, everything like that, and then too, he's a very, very good person, somebody who wants to work as well, and we piggyback off of each other with that.
Coach was talking in the past about the alpha dog, and I think he used the term darkness. You get to a dark place. Usually when you're talking about that kind of player, sometimes you're talking about a defensive player. What do you think that does for this team with you being, a really tough offensive player, going down the field and in your blocking?
I think, it helps a lot. I try to do everything in my power to help the team, and I don't think it's just me. We have other guys, other selfless guys, and people who want to get their nose dirty, really, and make the plays for other guys to spring loose, like freaking Ray. What is he, 5'8", 170? I don't want to disrespect him, but 180 something, and he going in there, putting his head in there all the time, and that's to spring Bijan open, and that's just not me who's doing that. So I think we got dogs all around the room. Yeah.
While you're operating within the bigger scheme, are there still moments that you can look for to say, all right, this has presented itself, so I can kick off of it and maybe go take my chance? Or, how do you kind of filter all of that out?
Yeah, this defense is really controlled chaos. Coach Brick gives our chances to take off. He lets, it's the time. We can have fun right here. But it's time. Hey, listen. You got responsibility. You got to slow down. You gotta know to take a shot.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
You had mentioned you want to play 10 years.
Yes,
and
sir.
that you learned a lot from Grady last year about longevity. What did you learn, you feel like, especially?
Off the field is big. Off the field is big. Film, just your mental wise to stay mentally sharp on the field. The weight room is really huge. That's the biggest thing. Just staying physically in shape, staying strong, staying explosive. And to do that for 10 years, you got to grind. And it's not just coming in and just doing a workout. You got to do extra. You got to do more. You got to go in the training room. You got to get on the tubs, all that.
Routines changed, I'd imagine?
Oh, yeah.
How
a lot. Just more active. My routine, getting up a little bit earlier, get inside the building, get some treatment, get the body going more. I feel like last year, I was just coming in, just riding the wave. I got stuck in the flow of just surviving. I feel like this more, I'm more proactive. I feel my body feels better, energy's a lot better. So yeah.
What's an average 24 hours look like for you right now?
You're stalking me.
Where do you go?
And,
what's your social security number?
Yeah, no, I usually get in the building before 6:30, 6:45. We don't start till around 8 o'clock. So when I get in here, I go in treatment room, hot tub, cold tub, go get soft tissue work, do that, and then we have meetings at 8 o'clock, and we meet. I can't tell you all my whole day. I can't do that. I can't do that. But yeah, whenever we got to lift, I try to stay a little 10 minutes extra after, just make sure just fine tune the body, just do anything I can. I want to play 10 years. I got to do that 10-year work.
Sorry if you've been asked this already, but with Grady gone and kind of that veteran captain leader essence, who and kind of what have you seen from the D-line group to kind of step up in that place?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's one individual. I think it's a collective effort. I feel like everybody is just stepping up and just wants to be that guy. I feel like once you have that, everybody wants to be that one guy. It brings a whole competitive nature that is just great at practice. Just the whole vibe at practice is different. It's a lot more fun. We just out here playing football.
Brendan, I think we often look at it from kind of the guys who are rushing from the second level, but as somebody who has their hand in the dirt, how does somebody like Caden Ellis rushing, somebody like Jalen Walker rushing from various gaps and weird alignments, does that complicate things or change anything for you than it would otherwise if we're just rushing four guys who are right there on the line of scrimmage?
I don't want to say it complicates nothing really. I feel like it adds to what we could do as a defense, especially with a guy like Caden. Everybody knows Caden can win. So, when Caden's walked up in the A-gap, when Caden walks up in the A-gap, I know that they're going to slide to Caden. I got one-on-one here, so it's stuff like that, we use to scheme up, and I love that we can do that. I love the versatility of this defense. It's fun.
So those chess pieces help you guys out?
Yeah, for sure. It's for sure a help.
Gotcha.
Yeah, not mad at it at all.
And so much is talked about that year 1 to year 2 jump where when you're a rookie year, you're like throwing a pool with so deep and all that stuff. Now that you're going into that year 2, how much more comfortable are you feeling right now?
Oh, yeah, I feel very much comfortable than I felt last year. I feel like every day my eyes were big. I was just like, I was fighting last year for sure, but that's just the nature of the game. And I never run away from a challenge. That's one thing about it. You got to challenge yourself as a player just to see where you're really at. And that shit really showed me where I was at, showed me what I had to work at, and I enjoyed the grind, the challenge, and it was fun.
And there were so many of you guys too, especially in your rookie class, that you guys, whether it was inactive or injuries and stuff like that, so this will be really the first time fans will get to see everybody out. What do you think everyone's going to expect to see? What are you guys hoping for?
You're just going to see what we did back in college. We're going to make plays. Everybody's going to do their thing. I don't feel like it's going to be too much of a change. Everybody on the team can make plays. We got a great team. And, I just want to do my job. I want to win games. I just want to win a Super Bowl, And I want to be part of that, get sacks. That's it.
I'm sure you've been asked before, but when Grady was let go, what was your reaction?
Oh yeah, for sure. You lose a guy like Grady, it kind of stinks a little bit. It hurts. Me and Ruke talked. Grady was a guy. We just went out with him before he left, and he just told us a lot of things before. It was very sad. I took it hard, but biggest thing I know is it's the NFL. It happens to anybody. It can happen to me. It can happen to Ruke. So if Ruke leaves, I might cry, but it's okay though. I'm not. It's all right.
When I asked Ollie about you last month, he had mentioned that he watched you out of Clemson. How much had you talked to him prior to him arriving here?
I didn't talk to him that much.
No?
Just maybe only at the combine.
Okay.
But I wouldn't say I talked that much.
What have you kind of seen from him so far?
Man, he's a high energy guy. He's going to demand it out of you, and he's consistent. Some coaches say they're high energy and they might have their days.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen one day where he's not yelling, screaming everywhere. So
When I asked Raheem about you and the step you have to take, he had mentioned that he feels like you've got like the armor up top right now, but you kind of can't tell until camp.
yeah.
What do you feel like is that next step for you?
The next step for me, I would just say just putting it all together. You know, some may class me as a raw player, and I understand that. You know, I haven't been playing football that long in my life, but I feel like every year I take big strides, you know? So I feel like I'm starting to catch up to all the cats that started playing when they were 6 years old. Me, I started playing when I was 16.
Yeah.
So I feel like every year I'm taking big strides. So I feel like now, slowly, it's just all going to come together.
Appreciate you.
How would you describe what last year was like for you? I imagine there was some frustration there.
Yeah. Last year was definitely tough. You know, obviously wanted to play the first 4 games, didn't play, sat out, and then started playing and then got hurt. But, you know, it's just a part of the game, man. Everything, if life went everybody's way, then there would be no toughness in the world, you know? So just, it's like everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth, you know? And so I kind of got punched in the mouth and I had to regroup and have my own plan and just keep going and not fall off.
You were just talking about learning so much from Grady last year, and he's obviously kind of not part of the picture now. Do you feel like there's an opportunity to kind of reestablish an identity for yourselves, especially up front with this group?
Yeah, there definitely is. You know, just losing a strong presence like Grady. But, you know, there's a lot of young guys. I trust Raheem and Terry. You know, they drafted us for a reason. They drafted me, Brandon, for a reason. And I feel like the time is now, and it's our time to put it together and go out there and play.
How do you feel about Jeff Ulbrich and just the system that he's kind of implementing and how you think it's going to fit you guys?
I feel really good. I love the system, man. We have the players for it. We have the bodies for it, the body types and all that. So I feel like it's going to work out really well for us, especially up front.
So what do you feel like the biggest difference between the system last year? I know, right? Rod talked about like it's still kind of the same, but it's different language and everything like that. But as far as the tackle though, like what do you feel like the biggest difference for you?
I feel like the biggest difference is more so like we were more 3-4 base last year, and now we've been emphasizing a more attack style front. So just instead of like kind of being a step slower and reading the blocks from in front of you, you're just kind of attacking and figuring that out on the run. So
yeah, I heard you talking about Nate Ollie. Like I question people's sanity when they have a skull cap on out in 90-degree weather.
Yeah.
So how is it like your relationship with him, and as far as how he can feel he can help you get better?
It's really good, man. I feel like he can bring it out of me, man. He can bring it out of all of us. You know, seeing somebody that's so consistent every day, like it has not been one day he's not yelling at the top of his lungs. Like it's 7 a.m, that's the first person I'm hearing. He yelling some. So just knowing that he's gonna consistently bring that for the whole season and the postseason, man, it's gonna keep lighting the fire under us to just keep us going.
And do you feel any pressure with Grady leaving? You know, being able to happen to step into that role potentially?
I don't feel no pressure, man. This is what we get paid to do. We get paid to play football and play it at the highest level. So I feel like it shouldn't be no pressure.
How do you describe the makeup of the roster? There's a lot of young guys. You're your second year. Raylan coming back for his second year. Then you have James Pierce Jr. You have Jalen Walker. How do you describe them mixing in behind you guys? You got, or besides some of those guys, Leonard Floyd.
I feel like it's a great mix. We are a young team. We have a lot of youth, you know, but we have the right vets in each position that will tell us what to do. We definitely have some very seasoned vets in every room. And although we are a young team, man, we got some cats that's coming. So I'm really excited to see us all put it together.
Has anyone stepped up on that D-line room now that Grady's gone? I mean, the guy that's been here for so long,
Yeah.
that leader, has someone kind of stepped up in that?
I would say we all stepped up. You know, we all know the opportunity at hand, and we all know it's time to establish, you know, a new faces in there, new names in there. So I feel like we all kind of accepted the challenge, and we're just going to all step up. So that's what I would say. I feel like all of us have stepped up 100%.
And I know last year you said it didn't go as you wanted, right? But that's part of life and how everything is. What did you say you learned about yourself in that year where, you know, maybe it wasn't the most ideal rookie year?
I would say for me, I'm just resilient. You know, I could have easily been like, oh, I'm hurt, like I don't want to play the last games, or oh, I'm not playing the first 4 games, so let me just be mad at myself. But I just took it as a challenge, man, a challenge to get better. Like I really love the game of football, so like if I love it and I put my love into it, it's gonna put its love into me back. So that's pretty much how I see it.